from the blog Don't Call It Bollywood, and today I want to talk about the 3 phases of a heroine's career in Indian film. This came up in a conversation in the comments on my blog where we were talking about how it's time for Deepika to consider getting married, which sounded horribly regressive, like, ooh, she's an older woman, she should just get married and go into a house and go away. But what we actually meant was she should enter the married phase of her career, because that's a distinctive phase for a heroine, and it's the last of 3 phases. The way it seems to me, our heroine begins by starting out. So that would be, you have your launch film, and then you have a series of smaller roles. For instance, Deepika in Bachna E Hasino, that kind of role, where you're not carrying the whole film on your shoulders, but you have a chance to sort of make an impression on the audience, get us to like you, get us to remember your name and start following your work. This is different from anything you would see in Hollywood because Hollywood just doesn't have as big a cast. If you're the heroine of a movie, you're the only heroine of the movie. You're carrying the whole thing. So either you're just an extra who's got 2 lines, or you're the whole deal. There's no sort of in-between, well, it's really a hero-led picture, but the heroine did good in her few love scenes sort of career path. So Deepika has Bachna E Hasino, Sonakshi has her whole series of action heroine roles. I'm sure you can list off for yourself all the other heroines who had this sort of starting out phase where they weren't really carrying a movie or even the co-lead of a movie, but they were there and they could make an impression. At some point, the goal is to get a shot at actually carrying a film that could change your career. You want to make an impression on the audience and also on producers as somebody who has something a little different to offer, someone whose name you can remember. And most heroines have that one film. For Kareena, it was Kamili, not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. For Deepika, it was Cocktail, and so on, and so forth. There's that one movie where your heroine is a little different, you take a bit of a risk and you pull it off and people sit up and take notice. And it's not like from then on you just do art movies or you just do different characters. You go back to your mainstream roles, but in a bigger role now. People really believe in you and give you something a little extra to do. So Deepika does Cocktail, and then she does Ye Jawani Hai Diwani. It's your standard rom-com, but it's a rom-com with a very large heroine role, and it does extremely well at the box office, and that's a sign that Deepika's career is going well. This 3rd phase is what I would call established actress. You're no longer just starting out. People know your name, they know what you can do, they're offering you roles with you in particular in mind, not just, oh, she's pretty and we can't afford anyone else. But you're still not necessarily doing really amazing lead parts. Ye Jawani Hai Diwani, okay, that's a great role, but it's still a rom-com. It's not a purely female-led picture. Kajal in this period did Dushman. Okay, so that was a leading role for her, but there was still a hero there, and it was still sort of a mainstream picture. It wasn't breaking too many boundaries. And you can keep in the established role for 5, maybe as long as 10 years. And it's a good position to be in. Everybody knows your name, you're recognized at parties, you're up for awards, you get good roles, and so on and so forth. But there's a built-in deadline to established, and you have to work really hard to stay established and push off that deadline. You have to give interviews, you have to appear in the right places, you have to dress the right way, you have to do the right kind of photo shoots. You have to be constantly working to just maintain that position. And Indian film does not like actresses to have that position past age 30. Maybe you can push it as far as 35, but the time keeps ticking away and you start getting fewer and fewer offers and the audience starts going, wait, she's still acting? What's happening? This is where Deepika is right now, and Katrina Kaif, and where Kareena was, 5, 6 years ago. There's just that built-in alarm clock that everybody has of, okay, an actress has been established and playing heroine parts for maybe 5 years now. That seems like a long time. We're ready for a new heroine. We're ready for a new face. We're ready for her to move on. And yes, it's unfair. And yes, heroes get to stick around longer, but that's just how it is. There's a deadline in your career and you need to start thinking about your 3rd phase. And this is where marriage comes in. Marriage is essentially a great period point to the established phase of your career. It's not about, oh, now she's married and she'll have kids and so on and so forth. It's about publicly announcing my career is no longer my sole focus. I am taking a step back. And you could do that any variety of ways. You don't have to get actually married to be married, which sounds silly. But what I mean is, if you want to change the phase of your career, you could do like Priyanka Chopra did and move to Hollywood. Say, okay, I'm done with being the sexy box office star in Indian films. I'm doing something different. I'm making an obvious shift. Deepika, I don't know what she's going to do after Padmavati, but if she wanted to, she could announce after Padmavati, okay, I am only working in small art films from now on. And if she does a big announcement with like a party or something, that would have the same effect as getting married. It would be one last burst of publicity for her. So everyone, all the producers and the audience would know what was happening. And then she could move on to a new phase in her career. Or look at Rekha. Rekha got married and then almost immediately got divorced, but it still happened. There was still that moment of, oh, Rekha's married now. Okay, she's no longer trying to be one of the top heroines. We're going to take her out of the competitive rat race in our heads and going to put her in more of a, oh, she's more interested in just acting and what's interesting and enjoying her life sort of point. Being married is a wonderful thing as a career decision. It lets you stay connected to the industry, especially if you actually get married and marry somebody who's also in the industry. And it lets you slow down and take a step back without anyone judging you or thinking that you've lost in some way and that's why you're leaving. Look at Twinkle Khanna. So she never even reached the established point of a career. She was just starting out and then quit, which she acknowledges herself. But she married a big star. She's still friends with everybody who's anybody. She still goes to all the important parties. You still know her face very, very well from seeing it in newspapers and magazines. And she was able to take all of that sort of celebrity and connections and cash it in to start a career as an interior decorator, as a writer, and now as a film producer without any of the pressure that would be inherent if she was trying to do all of this supported by her acting career. And this is pretty common. I mean, I'm sure we can all list off the actresses who entered this phase. Kajol, Rani Mukherjee, Vidya Balan. They all got married, stopped, slowed down, and started taking roles that were really interesting and different. Maybe they weren't the leading parts anymore, but that didn't matter because they weren't trying to stay the top actress in the industry. They were just trying to do good work. And so you start to see things like Kajol in Dilwale, which was a great role, but she was back to being a multi-star heroine after being queen of the industry briefly. Vidya Balan in Tumhari Sulu, which just came out. That's a great role for her, but it's a very small film and a very small kind of story. And who was the other one I mentioned? Rani Mukherjee. Rani Mukherjee, even before marriage, Mardani was kind of a married sort of role, a different sort of a film, not a standard heroine, all of that. And now she's got the biopic coming out, which is a very different kind of a role. For one thing, she's taking a year or so to prepare for it, which heroines at the top of their career don't have the luxury of doing because you have to keep acting and keep your face in front of the public. Rani isn't worried about that anymore. So that's the married phase of the career. And that's where I think Katrina and Deepika need to go at this point because it feels like their established time is beginning to run out. They're just not new anymore. And better for them to make an official decision that they're moving on and let someone else come into the top heroine slot than make it look as though they're desperately trying to hang on after they're pushed off. If nothing else, Padmavati, that's going to be Deepika's movie, if it ever comes out. This is going to be a big, grand showcase for her, and it's going to be very hard for her to take a step back and do a smaller role in a smaller film. And the problem is roles in films like Padmavati are only going to come across once a year or once every 2 years. So either she's going to have to go back and say, yes, I'm happy to just be the love-struck heroine again, or she's going to say, no, this is it. I'm only doing serious roles from now on. One final thing, two people who I find fascinating are Anushka Sharma and Sonam Kapoor for how they've reached the married stage without even going through the established stage. Both of them put in their time starting out. They were in terrible movies. Anushka did Kidnap, Sonam did Players, they made connections, people got used to their faces, like people in the industry and the audience. They did their time. But as soon as they got that first role, which bumped them up to established, as soon as Anushka got, what would it be? Ban Baja Bharat, maybe? And Sonam got Khoobsurat, they stopped. And they said, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm starting my own production studio. I'm doing one film a year in whatever role it is with a big hero, and I'm producing my own stuff. And I'm not producing my own stuff as star showcase. I'm producing my own stuff as actress showcase, as a showcase for me in particular. What I mean by that is something like Nirja, amazing performance from Sonam Kapoor, was not positioned to be a blockbuster hit. They didn't pay for the really fancy song sequences. They didn't stick posters everywhere in the world. They didn't even give it a major release. They knew it was going to do well, but this is not a film that was set up to make Sonam the biggest star in all of Indian film, or even the biggest actress in all of Indian film. It was set up to be a good movie on its own and give Sonam a good role that she could enjoy playing. Same with Anushka, NH10, or even more Filari. A great role for her, a great story, a great movie. It was not going to be a big hit. It was released small, it was done small. It's the kind of small film that if she weren't producing it, it would be odd for an actress of her caliber to be in. But this is a great business plan. Anushka and Sonam, they can keep headlining movies for themselves and for other movie stars for maybe another 5 years. And at that point, they can take a step back and say, okay, I'm no longer headlining, I'm no longer working with other stars. I'm working in my production studio, and every once in a while, I'll do an interesting role if it's there for me. Filari, Anushka was not technically the heroine of the film. That is, there was a young lover couple that was sort of the framing story for it, and she appeared as a ghost. And she had some flashbacks, but she was also there just to give advice to the young lovers. This is the sort of role that she might be able to play at age 40 or 50. She can come in and be the interesting character person who gives advice to the other people, who has something else going on but isn't necessarily the main point of the film. And it looks like with Veera De Wedding, Sonam is going to be playing the same sort of a role, sharing the screen with other people. This is what married actresses do. They're no longer so... It's no longer so important for them to be the top name in the movie or the top name after the top actor in the movie. They don't have anything to prove anymore. And that's what it feels like Anushka and Sonam are doing. They don't really have anything to prove anymore. They're trying to build a different sort of a career, and they don't need that big line of marriage to get there. They're just getting there on their own without a man involved. Anyway, that's how it looks to me. Actresses have starting out established married as their career, and that's the kind of path that has always been, and it's hard to break it. If you disagree, if you agree, feel free to leave a comment on my blog. There's a link right below. Hope to see you there. Thanks. Bye.